Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to Popternative. This is the talk show and podcast where we have digital discussions, worlds of TV, film, news, pop culture, sports, comedy, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is a comedian, podcaster, also acts. Recently, you will recognize her as one half of Nick the Stick Gaines' parents on Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney+. She also hosts her own podcast called The High School Sucked Podcast. Jane Stanton is with us. Jane, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you for having me. You have so much energy and you talk quicker than me. So I'm like, I talk very, very quickly.
I'm excited to chat with you. There's a lot kind of going on right now. I mean, there was some really cool episodes of you in Mighty Ducks Game Changers, but your podcast is just kind of taking off right now. Congrats on that. When did you kind of decide? Because comedy you've been doing for a lot of times, but the podcast, when did the podcast come to be?
The podcast came to be of me pestering my co-host with my cohort, Darcy Michael, which I say Darcy Michaels as an ongoing joke always when I intro him. Because I wanted to do a podcast for a long time. And during the pandemic, I was like, stand up, is it coming back? Who knows? And then we were talking about high school and we're like, God, like it sucked, right? But yeah. I couldn't even think, but there was good points too, but it's just your emotions are so heightened that it, like if a friend hangs up on you, you're like, well, it's over. I couldn't even imagine now going in high school, just with social media, filming, all of that. It's great. And we came up with it just talking, because we both grew up in North Vancouver and different schools. And it's just done, it hits a thing, I guess, with everyone, because everyone's gone to high school type of thing.
It's one of those things too, where I always think about it because, I definitely can relate to the title of your podcast with High School Sucked. But it's, you're a kid and you're focusing on kind of one aspect of things, right? And like for me, like the social aspect wasn't great at all, right? But then like the actual like learning aspect of it for me was pretty good. And I look at a lot of things that I learned back then. I went to a school that was pretty known for its arts and a lot of things, and that aspect of it as well. But was this also kind of one of those things where you wanted to kind of do, because let's be honest, right? Like when I listen to your podcast, right? That's not your typical kind of three comedians just like chatting about comedy, because there's a lot of that. You know what I mean? This is a little bit more unique. You're like focusing in on something specific. Did that come to mind as well too? That you didn't just want to do like a comedy podcast? I'm sure it did.
I would mean yes, but then it's like one in a million of, you know what I mean? There's so many, and there's so many that I love as well. But just everyone's high school experience is different. And what we've been because I have journals right beside me right now that I'm looking at from when I was in grade 9, that we have that, but then it's a cool thing that's evolved in it. The same probably as you doing yours is different things, is teachers, like positive and negative. Because you're saying you were a good student then. Yes, I'm getting from what you're saying. Yeah. So like, I never went. I would skip all the time. My dad would be like, Jane, 57 classes, you weren't there. I'm like, they're wrong. I was dyslexic. I wasn't like diagnosed till like grade 8 or 9. And then ADD medication just like literally 2-3 months ago. So I honestly think as a student, I would have been a lot better with just that focusing wise.
Yeah, well, I grew up also with ADHD as well. So, like I did my best and I did pretty well, but there were challenges there, of course, too, right? It's just you kind of look back and, my school was a specialty school they did kind of what they called at the time higher learning, which they did. There was like different things that were not part of like the traditional curriculum, right? Like they let you be outside the box, right? So instead of writing a book,
it's like an amazing school, though.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like they allowed me. So instead of like a book report of Romeo and Juliet, I was able to write like a rap song.
See, that's like to me. I was just, what am I, 90? I was like, that gets me jazz. But that to me is amazing. Like when you look at school, Sir something, one of the first TED Talks. He was
Yeah.
amazing about high school or no school system. Like it's from like the 1800s, how
Yeah.
it's still done.
Yeah.
So weird.
Absolutely. I do want to ask you though. I mean, you are in some episodes of Mighty Ducks Game Changers, and I grew up in Canada. I mean, those were the movies for me, Jade. Like,
Oh
like
yeah.
this is like huge. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I know. Like literally,
Big deal.
when I booked it, I was like, cool, like yeah, super excited. But I also didn't check like that it was reoccurring, if that makes sense. So I thought it was like one episode, like the third episode, and I was like, cool. And like I know Amy, and then Maxwell, who's playing our son, who's like
The
not
best.
just that he's playing my son, but our son. He is the best. By
The
like
best. He actually
literally
is the
any of
best.
my friends that have kids are like, oh, because they love him from I have shivers from the Sleepover movie too. So
Yeah.
they love like, oh my god, we rewound it. They're like, because he said about his moms and you're a mom. Just in like the episode 2 of like the lead into. And I just thought it was really cool. Also coming on set as well, not just for Disney, but that's like amazing. Also being the first like gay couple.
Yeah.
That was like, I was like, oh, like when we a lot of people said that on production of like makeup, hair, and I was like, oh, like I just wasn't thinking that. And then I'm like, oh, that is really cool. I mean, it's 2021, but like it's also like, yes, about time, and also that is super cool.
I know, it is really cool. And a really big episode for you and Amy is obviously the sleepover episode where you're hosting, Coob and Evan, and you find out you guys enjoy show tunes. And I've interviewed Luke Islam on the show, and he wasn't able to kind of talk about that episode because the show didn't air yet. But I talked to Amy about it. That was a big deal. Like he just sang for you guys.
Oh, like he got the golden buzzer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the best part though, like he has the most, I have shivers thinking about his voice. He has the most amazing voice, but then because the shot of her, like I was like, oh, we don't need like fake tears, nothing. Like he's amazing. He's over a 10 out of a 10. But I got some of the reaction, but then because I was sitting on the right of her, it was kind of a stand-in.
Yep.
But like I could hear him when he was downstairs and I was getting shivers. I was like, he's so good.
I know.
Yeah, like the tears, everything, that's all real. There was nothing with that. And to work with obviously Emilio, because I grew up on what you were saying, like the Mighty Ducks also to me was like Young Guns and Breakfast Club. Like the first day, you'll enjoy this, that I opened my trailer and he happened to be there. He was talking to Maxwell, who plays Nick, and I opened, he's like, hello, and I'm like, oh hi. He's like, I'm glad you're here. I'm like, it's good to be glad here. I don't know why I said that, and then I just walked backwards into my trailer and cut the door. And I've met a lot of, the celebrities and stuff, but I think it was because what we were high school sucked. Like teenage years came into me all of a sudden, and I got like nervous and weird. And he was lovely.
But that actually happened. So I used to be a concert promoter. I gotta tell the story. So a friend of mine, Dave Backish, is Brown Sound. He's a guitarist of Sum 41. He's back in Sum 41 now, but he wasn't at one point. So he was like playing in some other like bar bands and everything, and he was producing. And we booked his band at the time, and they came in and they did a show in a small little bar. And one of the opening bands was like big Sum 41 fans. Like some of those bands are like the reason why certain people like pick up their instruments. You know what I mean, Jay? Like it's a big deal, right? And like I'll never forget the fact like Dave just walking up with his like amp and guitar, like walking right by them, be like, hey guys, I'm Dave, and like literally like this opening band just like frozen, like completely frozen, like not able to say anything.
That to me is like a great thing though, like what you're saying of like inspiring people to do that.
Oh, it's huge.
But it's also of like, that was the Mighty Ducks with me when I was younger. And then people with Lauren Graham, like because people watch obviously the Gilmore Girls. And people like, I saw people with tears in their eyes, like
Lorelai, oh my God.
like losing it. And that didn't, because I didn't watch the show. Like I knew it was super popular. But I was at that age where I didn't like anyways, but yeah, the Emilio, and then I was fine. I had to have a timeout in my trailer, and then I was totally fine and like got along great. But it was that 2 seconds I was like, I was not mentally prepared for that. Yeah.
I've been it's not like it's not super hard, but like I've been throwing like kind of easy, kind of cool talking points down. I wanted that kind of pick your brain about something right now. It's not like a
Sure.
bad question or anything, but
Go. I'm weirded out, but go.
no,
Yeah, I'm
no,
like,
just like
where are you
stand up,
going?
just stand up comedians, right? Stand up comedy. I'm talking like before the pandemic because it's changed now,
Oh, okay,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I just find like any industry, that seems to be a very difficult industry to break out in. And, you know, you hear all these people kind of talk about, you know, you see someone for the first time. Like the thing that always bothered me is you'd see someone for the first time. Like people see, you know, Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. They didn't realize like the many, many years of him kind of
Oh, yeah.
behind, right? Does that still kind of get to you as a stand-up comedian, that that's still there, that people don't realize how long it takes? Because it's still there. Like people don't realize. They don't realize. They see someone for the first time on like SNL or something. They don't know that they were in an improv troupe for like 13 years before that.
Oh, yeah. Like I can name so many comedians that everyone's like, oh my God, they're so good. Like they're such an overnight success. I'm like, not at all. Not, it's 100%. I agree with you. I do get it's a ebb and flow with me of, I've been doing it 16 years.
Yeah.
And so I felt confident about putting my album out when I did that, I think 2018
Yep.
or 19, I don't know. But that it takes a long time, but anything does,
Yeah.
right? Like it's to be good at anything. Like I always try to think of like when people are like, yeah, I'm a stand-up, especially when this happened. There's a ton of people that had never done it. I was like, I don't understand. But I guess because people are like, the end of the world's coming. I'm going to give it a go. And people were just like, hopefully I get paid soon. I'm like, what? Like that takes for anything, like if you're like, I'm going to be a plumber, do you think you get paid right away? Right. Like,
Yeah.
or I'm a painter. I think anything in the arts though, because it does, people are on Instagram and they're influencers that they'll be like, I'm a makeup artist. I'm like the same as the person that did the makeup on my face for Mighty Ducks. I don't hardly know. You have to put, and then at the end of the day, are you funny? Like,
yeah,
because if you're funny with your friends, very different. I made that point when I started right away of like, I didn't want my friends to come, family, no one for like a year or two, because they can't come on the road with me. I was aware of that aspect, right? Like if I have to make a room of people I don't know laugh.
Yeah.
Like,
no, for sure. The reason I said about like, it's more like we're having a good time. We're talking about positive things, and that's why it was kind of like more like a warning that like it was a little bit of like a negative.
Don't get into it. Whatever you do.
No, it was just like one of those. Well, I remember like I interviewed Brett Ernst, who is a big stand-up comedian. He was in Cobra Kai, and I started asking him about like heckling, and he lost his mind about it.
What do you mean?
Well, he just lost his mind, like being like, I don't like hecklers, like it irritates me, and like it was almost one of those like, maybe I should. No, not me, but he was just mad about it because
I
apparently
thought he lost it on you. I was like,
no, he didn't lose it on me. He didn't lose it. He didn't lose it on me. He lost it on because apparently he was doing some COVID shows recently in LA, like in New Jersey and LA,
the States,
and it just happened, and I happened to ask him that, and it was like, I guess very fresh. And
I feel like heckling, what you just said, to like jump off of that, I think in the last 3+ years, heckling's gotten way more because people are like, I'm part of the show. I'm going to contribute. And it's way more than ever. Like I had someone come on stage at me, by the way. I feel like I can handle myself. I like to talk to people sometimes too. If like there's a thing and I don't mind that. But when my jokes are long, some of them. So like when someone interrupts, I'm like, no. So that part, but I feel because of everything of, Twitter, of like, I have 100 followers and like, I'm going to be, I stumped that comedian. People think that they're like, I'm part of the show. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're not helping. You're not helping. No. You'd be like a person watching a marathon and you go and push the person that's in first place over and you're like, I helped them. And you're like, no, you didn't. You injured them. Like you didn't do anything at all.
I had to think about that. No, but I mean, it's just like social media at one point was really like a I know more than you platform. And one can make an argument it's still like you tweet something
I'm like,
about stand-up comedy and someone would be like, no, it's not like that. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I don't think that's ever going away. I just think though, kind of getting back to what you were saying, I find it very interesting about like the makeup artist and like the plumbing and it takes a while type thing. I am seeing a lot of people, even there are people that know that working in sports is a grind. You know what I mean? They know it's not as glamorous as if they think it. They know that the pay isn't that great, but they still want to work in sports for
yeah.
whatever reasons, right? But like I am seeing a lot of people that they want to work in a certain industry because they love it, but there's no opportunity, so they look at other career paths as well. Same with stand-up comedy, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure.
it happens a lot where it's not even like a quote unquote give up, but it feels like that sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say stand up would be, when you just said that clicked for me, is
Yeah.
maybe on par with owning a restaurant, which is like one of the hardest
Yep,
things to do, right? And
exactly.
people are like, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, did you work in a restaurant? No. Do you cook? No. Did you this? No. I'm like, what are you doing?
But I have good interpersonal skills.
Yeah, well, then you're gonna fail. But yeah, I did coach soccer for years, which is so funny you brought that up. I
So
got
you
good
know
money
all
for
about
that.
it, and the parents
Yeah,
and Mighty
well,
Ducks.
that was more the parents.
Well,
That was
Mighty
the
Ducks
parents of,
know, like you guys are good. Like you know all about the parents.
good parents. The parents that I coached were the Mighty Ducks parents. Like I'm getting shivers. I had crazy parents when I coached soccer because when I was fit and won nationals as a player, there wasn't a lot of female coaches, right? There still isn't a ton. And they would be like, she's trying to lose the game. Like me coaching 13-year-olds, losing their minds. Like, yeah, totally like the Mighty Ducks parents, not the don't bothers. No. We're like, they're the good positive ones. And the bonus is I got to learn how to skate for the show. So
I know.
there.
That was a good the mom's challenge skills. That was a great episode. And what was it like also, like he's a friend of mine. I mean, Dylan Playfair. I mean, he is just like so good and so funny. What was it like kind of working, like being on set with him? Because he was there, right? When you were doing those.
Yeah, he got to, I mean, he played hockey to a very high level, right? Like his whole family is involved. Because I talked to him about that. Because Dan Payne, that plays Kiefer's dad, he so cute. He brought his skates, and I was like, "What are you doing?" When we were taking the shuttle to set, and he's like, maybe I'll skate. I'm like, you're not skating. You didn't sign a waiver. And he's like, what? Because you have to, there's certain things. I'm like, we're on the ice. I'm like, you're not. I'm like, you're so cute, but you're not going to be skating. And because he knew how to skate, right? And him and a couple other people, it was just, I asked him a ton of stuff because he was on the ice for so long, right? Like the shots. Anytime they said cut with me, I was like, like to the side, because a lot of it was learning how to skate because like I didn't skate growing up. It was like I went 3 times in my life. So it was 4 times.
But you played soccer growing up, so you were an athlete. So you had that like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna learn.
Yeah, but I'm not 20. I'm 46, man. I was like so scared. So the first day we went, it was on a Saturday because they had built the ice rink, right? And I was there. I show up. Amy's there, who plays my wife, and I was like, okay, and I'm getting shivers, and not in a good way, telling you the story. I'm getting Dave, who's like the coordinator of the whole skating, it's putting my skates on because I don't even know that. Like, I'm like, this is weird. Like, and then you realize why parents put hockey equipment on kids. And Amy bails so hard. I see her, I'm like, oh God. And then Julie, who's the Mighty Ducks nemesis lady, she bails too. I'm like, because like they're fit, and I'm like, they're falling. It's not a child falling.
I interviewed both of them on this show, and no one's told me this story. So I'm just saying.
They bailed. I have shivers. They bailed, and I was like, I gotta go to the washroom. So I had to go to the washroom because I was so nervous.
But I feel like they would have brought this up because this seems like a pretty big story. Because I asked them both about what it was like playing. Because
did they say they were pro stars?
No, they didn't. But they were like, it was tough. But I want that story.
Oh God, they and then so for me, I just got stuck by the like team to hold on and like do it with one leg, turn around the other leg. That was one day. Then the next day was hold on, go both sides where the teams are. And then the third practice, I was like, I'm gonna skate around the ice. And the coach was like, no. And I'm like, I am. And so I did. And then I was like, hey, if I fall, like, how do I get up? Because I'm like, I don't know. So I got them to show them that I did bail once there because I was like, oh God, with all the extras and I bail and I don't want to be like, like a turtle, like help me up. Julie bailed hard when she had the slap shot.
Yeah.
So we were filming that, and she's such a like pro and trekker. She did it. She hit it so hard, but she was like, boom, and didn't like, I would have burst out laughing. She got up and like skated over, did the high fives. And I was like, whoa, like I would have been probably crying, but she like,
and the ironic thing too is Kiefer O'Reilly is like
a cocky player.
Yeah. And like, he can't skate. And
I know that
like,
would. Well, when he went on the ice, you could tell that I'm like, I could from, sports stuff. You're saying that like to be able to do bad, you have to be good.
Yeah.
And so he was like all over the map. But that would probably kill him, right? Of like, I can do this.
I know.
Are you enjoying it? Mighty Ducks?
I'm loving it. It's like for me, it's just, I'm biased too, right? Because that's like my stuff growing up. But like I've watched a lot of TV shows, but like this is the one like I can't miss it on Fridays. You know what I mean?
It's such a good Friday night. Yeah.
It is such a good Friday. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show too. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you plug away quickly? High School Suck podcast. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts, right?
Wherever you listen to it. It's on, Spotify, iTunes, on everything. Google Play, High School Sucked. We've had really good guests. We had Lauren Ash from Superstore. We had
no way, that's sick.
Yeah, we had Bruce McCullough from Kids in the Hall recently. We've had some really, really good guests, and it's a fun one. It's so enjoyable. Like doing this, it's like interaction, like you're almost like get to see people, so it's fun. And and my album too, Date Night, that's on like iTunes. Do that. Follow me on Instagram, the Jane Stanton.
Amazing. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Jane Stanton and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.